There's a nice comment from Lee. So yeah, we are all united for the love of home movies. Okay, it's 3:05, so if you all agree, we can get started with the event because we are so eager to look at home movies and learn a lot from Snowden. So welcome everyone to our Home Movie Day event. We are the AMIA student chapter at the University of Alabama. I'm Valeria Dávila, president of the chapter, and with me today are Ryan Inman, vice president, Elizabeth Meads, treasurer, and Dimitrios Latsis, faculty advisor, and we are thrilled to have you all here to share some love for home movies. This is the first event of our chapter, and we couldn't be more delighted with the lineup. We have a very special guest, Snowden Becker, and after her presentation, we'll enjoy some home movies contributed by students. But before we start, I'd like to remind you of the code of conduct on Zoom. First, feel free to turn on your cameras. We'd love to see you. And we encourage you to unmute yourselves for asking questions, but keeping your mics muted during the presentation and screening. Now let's meet our guest speaker. Snowden holds a BFA in printmaking from the Maryland Institute College of Art and an MLIS from UCLA, and most but not all of a PhD in information studies from the University of Texas at Austin. Her research interests focus on how audiovisual materials are collected and preserved as part of our cultural heritage, especially non-theatrical media from home movies to police body cam footage. In 2003, Snowden co-founded the International Home Movie Day event, which was recognized by the Society of American Archivists with the Heimer Kagan Award for Archival Advocacy in 2018. She has taught courses on preservation, audiovisual media, and career development in the information professions since 2006, and she managed the graduate programs in moving image archive studies and library and information science at UCLA from 2012 to 2019. Most recently, and coinciding with the pandemic shutdowns, she started freelancing as a consulting archivist and respects anyone who has been working to earn a degree and land a career during these wild times. So without further ado, I'll leave you with Snowden.
Thank you so much, Valeria, for that wonderful introduction, which you delivered so beautifully. And yes, congratulations to the students who are at U of A and creating new student chapters and finding ways to create community during a time of genuine isolation and scary futures for all of us. I really commend you. I am impressed every day with the work that students are doing at all of the graduate programs worldwide, and I want to just sort of share my experiences and give you some sense of where I was when I was in your position and how far I've come with the help of folks from the Moving Image Archive community. So including, and that journey started with the student chapter at UCLA. So am I allowed, I should have asked, am I allowed to share my screen and throw some PowerPoint slides up there for you? Valeria, am I allowed to do that? Let's see. Share screen. Oh, look, it's gonna let me. Awesome. Okay, so who am I? Valeria gave me a wonderful introduction, but I will say that in addition to being a Zoolander fan, I am somebody who's just been really, really fortunate, I think, in the timing of when I came up in the world. I think that where I am now is largely informed by not a strategy that I had when I came out of graduate school, but a lot of serendipity in what was going on in the audiovisual preservation community when I was coming up in the world, the people who came before me and the ground that they prepared, and the mentorship that I got, and the friends that I was able to make along the way, and the projects that I have been fortunate to work on, or just, you know, the projects that I was smart enough to work on when the opportunity came along. So hopefully part of my intention today is to not just convey concrete information and examples of home movies and what you might encounter when working with them, but also give a sense of where it's possible to go if you just kind of follow your nose and take advantage of the opportunities that come up as they come up. I want to really push back against the idea that careers are intentional processes, they're emergent processes, and I think it would have been impossible for me to imagine the future that I'm in if you had told me 20 years ago that I would still be super duper into home movies. I would have said that you were insane. But the more I work with them, the more I find that there are avenues that I want to explore and have not yet had the chance to. So in 2001, I graduated from UCLA's master's degree program in library and information science. That's the year that the UC Regents ratified the creation of a graduate program in moving image archive studies, which, if you flash forward, 12 years, I ended up running that program as the program manager. At the time, the Association of Moving Image Archivists had its first student chapter established at UCLA. So U of A is continuing in that proud tradition of launching amazing careers. Other people who were in that student chapter with me include Andrea Lee, who is now at the Library of Congress, folks who are at major studios like Disney, Animation Research Library, Universal, and UCLA Film and Television Archive. A lot of people have come out of that program and gone on to doing amazing things. There are folks who are working at the J. Paul Getty Museum and with collections of, or with the J. Paul Getty Research Institute and collections where audiovisual materials are integrated into more mixed collections, which was what I was doing throughout graduate school. I was working with film materials that were part of a community and cultural history collection at the Japanese American National Museum. And that institution had a collection of about 1,000 reels of home movies that were shot between the 1920s and the 1970s by people who were part of the Japanese American community or close to it, either as allies and neighbors and friends of Japanese Americans who were incarcerated in World War II, employees of America's concentration camps, or played other roles that brought them into contact with the Japanese American community and its history. So I was very, very excited to attend my first AMIA conference in 2001 because they were going to be streaming as part of that conference, or streaming in the 2001 sense, because online video was not a thing. A conference stream devoted to the outcomes of the work of the Small Gauge Task Force, which had received a small amount of funding to investigate preservation needs and knowledge related to small gauge film, which has very, very different needs and tolerances from feature film material, production material, commercial material. So I was stoked to go and meet other people who, as you know, Lee, it's so exciting to meet people who are into home movies. That was like, it was like Disneyland for me. And I made great friends there. I accidentally became the founding chair of the Small Gauge and Amateur Film Interest Group when the task force had its wrap-up meeting, and they said, like, we should continue the work of the task force, and everybody was like, yeah. And then they said, we should create an interest group, and everybody was like, yeah, totally. And they're like, if we're gonna have an interest group, we have to have a chair. And then everybody was like, crickets. And so I kind of quietly, like, shyly raised my hand, thinking that if a 25-year-old or 26-year-old like total noob I still thought of myself as a grad student. I had like just graduated. I wasn't really fully owning my role as digital and media archivist at the Japanese American National Museum, even though I had that job. I was just like, oh, so an adult will see what is happening and intervene and prevent a terrible mistake from being made. But everybody was just like, no, go ahead, do it, which introduced me to the wonderful world of AMIA and the welcoming spirit with which anybody who volunteers to do anything is often treated in that community, and sort of it exemplified for me the entrepreneurial and sort of encouraging and supportive environment that AMIA can be. Karen Sheldon, who is one of the greats in American home movie preservation, co-founder of the Northeast Historic Film Collection, which is one of the first national level collections to be acquiring and systematically collecting home movies on a regional basis and as cultural and community history. Karen Sheldon was sitting behind me and she leaned forward and she kind of whispered in my ear, like, you should probably start taking notes, because the business of the interest group was already happening. And I was sort of like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that was a feeling that continued when my first peer-reviewed research article appeared in a subsequent issue of The Moving Image, Volume 1, Issue 2. I would never have thought that a grad school paper of mine would be something publishable were it not for James Turner, who was a visiting professor at UCLA. He read the paper I submitted for his class on moving image description and said, this is potentially publishable. There's a new journal being launched. You should submit it, and encouraged me to submit and publish, which I just didn't know that I was allowed to do that either. And the next year at the Association of Moving Image Archivist conference was when the idea for Home Movie Day was born, where I had a fateful lunch with Katie Traynor, Brian Graney, Chad Hunter, and Dwight Swanson after the Small Gauge and Amateur Film Interest Group meeting, where vendors had told us that people were transferring their family films to VHS and then refusing to take the films back when they came to pick up the tapes. We were concerned that that was happening on a large scale, or that worse yet, people were just throwing their films out because they'd never seen them. They thought of them as bad movies, boring movies, and not as family heirlooms. And so we decided we'll create something to stop that. So my first Home Movie Day, this is kind of how I showed up. I didn't know anything about film handling. We didn't have rewinds or capacity for students to learn about film. I was theoretically informed, but practically inept. So I was the MC for that first Home Movie Day in August of 2003. I used my soft skills rather than my technical skills. I pulled together volunteers who knew what they were doing. I did the patter. I could talk about home movies, even if I couldn't inspect a reel of them or put them up on a projector. I could, with about 50% accuracy, tell somebody like, oh, you have Super 8 film, not regular 8. So I learned over time, and 16 years later, look, Ma, it's my hands inspecting film at the Home Movie Day event in 2018. I created something with my colleagues and colleagues around the world that has, I'm really proud to say, been able to continue without us. All 5 of the founding members of the Center for Home Movies, the nonprofit organization that we created to serve as an umbrella group for the Center for the, not just the Home Movie Day event annually, so that people could receive donations as tax-deductible gifts through our auspices, but also so that we could create things like a DVD compilation of home movies from the first several years of Home Movie Day that could be used for teaching and instruction, that had examples of every format of amateur film and every every decade of amateur filmmaking from the 20s up through the 1990s and early 2000s. The most recent film was shot, I think, in 2005. And it's Sound Super 8, featuring a social ritual that is little seen and little documented: the burial of a placenta on a baby's first birthday in the family's backyard. And it's commentated on by the little girl who is featured in it and whose placenta is being buried. So she's now a grown person, and had plenty to say about, like, mainly yuck, about that process and the ways in which her family chose to commemorate her birth and preserve it on home movie footage. So it meant a lot to me to be holding film in my hand. That event was also a time where I could really see how far we had come technologically. Not this particular piece of film, but another piece of film that I inspected that day came from a Home Movie Day volunteer and graduate of the UCLA, the last class that went through UCLA's Moving Image Archive Studies program before it converted into a specialty within the MLIS program. Jen O'Leary brought footage from her family that she had never seen, that had probably not been seen by her own mother since she appeared in it. And it depicted, we thought, a road trip that the mother and grandmother had taken to the American West. I found a frame of footage that had a group shot of people standing near a historical marker. I took a frame shot through the loop with my smartphone, texted it to Jen. She texted it to her mother and said, like, "Is this you and Grandma at Sequoia National Park," or wherever it was? And her mom texted back, more or less instantaneously, "I have no idea who those people are," and then posted the photo on Facebook and said, "Hey, if you were in this national park in this general window of time and this is you, please let us know." None of that capacity existed when Home Movie Day started. The ability to post video online was still a really bandwidth intensive prospect. YouTube did not get invented until Home Movie Day was 3 years in. Transferring films was still an expensive proposition. As I said, people were still transferring to VHS, not even to DVD or digital files. So a lot has changed. Like, it really has been, that year really was a sweet 16 for us in a lot of different ways. And for me particularly, just getting to see how much my own attitudes about home movies had changed, that I wasn't necessarily thinking about the Home Movie Day as a collecting event, but more as an information sharing event, as a public education process, getting people to think differently and see home movies for the first time, or see home movies in a different way, and fundamentally share the information that they needed to be the best custodians of their own materials. Not to have the Indiana Jones attitude of, like, this belongs in a museum, but to say, this is museum worthy material that you are lucky enough to own, and that we believe you can care for yourself better than we could. Should you choose to hand it off to us, we have a home movie living will that you can use to describe and capture information about your home movies, what you know, if you know anything, and what you want for those films, what you don't want. Like, do you not want your footage of you and your sisters in your teen years to be used in a tampon commercial? That's you get to say that if you don't want it used for commercial use at all. If you do feel like it's fine for commercial use, or if you want to appoint an executor for your home movie estate, if you will, we try to make all that possible and let people make informed decisions with their collections now. So I've also ceased being surprised by anything that I see in a home movie. I mean, this is just what I came up with in the 30 seconds while Valeria was introducing me. Like, this is all of this I have seen in amateur films and more. So there's stuff I'm not allowed to talk about, but believe, if you ask me, I will probably tell you. But this is all just par for the course. One of the reasons that I remain fascinated with home movies is that I see enough feature films and television that I know what's happening. I know what's going to come up next just by music cues, or sort of like when a character is introduced, I'm like, that guy's going to die in the next scene. Like he's going to walk out the door and open his car door, and then boom. We all get that stuff telegraphed. But like the day that I saw the footage of the toddler, you know, putting his hand in the toilet and then like right into, like flushing the toilet, putting his hand in, and then like right into his mouth, I was like, whoa, that's the last bastion of true dramatic tension comes from home movies. Because even if it's the most quotidian and mundane and most ritualistic event being captured, you have no idea like who's gonna be sitting at the Seder and turn their yarmulke inside out, or like do something wild and wacky that the person behind the camera just loves and leaves in. Like I love watching home movies because it could be 10 minutes of boring crap, and then like, whoa, something insane happens. Or you might think it's going to be a totally normal footage shot by a travel filmmaker on a trip to Africa, and then it turns out to be clearly not his film at all, and it, you know, featuring very detailed and graphic footage of a genital cutting ritual from you know, that was shot in a local tribe, in a local tribe's village, with the entire village taking part. So there's, yeah, people, dudes whip it out, girls show their tits. It's just, you name it. Like it could happen if a home movie camera is pointed at it. There is no difference between the home movies of 100 years ago in that respect and the home movies of today. There's zero difference, honestly. Wild, wacky, wonderful, disturbing, delightful stuff is caught on all of this material. So the next question is how to care for it. What do you do with your home movies? How do you deal with them? I like to say that we use all 5 senses when we are working with home movies. 6 if you count like our emotions, 7 if you count our thinkers. So we start with our eyes, of course, inspecting visually whether it is a VHS tape that has a wonderful label on it, or one of those gorgeous little yellow boxes that comes with written metadata that should be captured in the preservation process. We shake the box to listen to whether it's rattling, or if there's like a disturbing sound, like maybe a rubber band has dried up and turned into crumbles. A canister may have foreign material in it, bits of paper. We listen for the sound of the film traveling through the projector or going around on the reels of the rewind. All of those sounds are part of it. Tactile, obviously, we use our hands. When you hold a VHS tape in your hand and there's a little piece missing inside, a tiny little plastic dingus, yeah, Lee, you know what I'm talking about. We feel film, we feel tape. We can, there's something in between sound and like sonic and tactile when you put the tape in, or when you put a floppy diskette into a 3.5-inch drive. There is really a lot of sensory input. So being sensorily aware is the first and most important thing you can do when you are assessing a collection. Smelling, you can smell mold, you can smell vinegar, you can smell all the things that are, like musty stuff. You can cat pee, mouse poop, all of those things that are in the cardboard boxes and shoe boxes that home movies tend to be stored in. Smelling things. And I will caution everybody, like, maybe don't get all the way in there. Like, remember your chemistry class, like we want to waft and not huff when it comes to home movies. They may smell like wintergreen, they may smell like cloves, they may smell like mothballs. Those are all chemical materials that are used sometimes as plasticizers, that may be a sign of healthy film. They're also, they may remind you of your grandmother, the mothballs, or your high school years smoking clove cigarettes. But they have meaning for films as well. So the smells, and we don't necessarily taste film, but if you're somebody who has difficulty, who has not yet learned to discern the emulsion side from the base side of film, the base side is the dull side, but it's also the side that's a little sticky on the inside of your lip. I'm not telling anybody to put film in their mouth, but you will notice that's how a lot of people who do darkroom work tell which side of the film they're working with. It's just a quick touch onto a moist surface, like the inside of your lip. So like, don't eat film. It's not vegetarian, it has gelatin in it. But know that like savoring what we see and hear on the screen is part of it as well. And that's where the mind and the heart come in. Engaging thoughtfully in the content, looking at what's on the table. If it's a family scene indoors, like what's on the table? What are people eating? What's under the tree at the holidays? What's in the driveway? What's in the front yard? What kind of toys and neighborhoods? What's on the street signs? What's the house number? All of these little context clues are things that we can be looking for. Look beyond the center of the screen. Look at the subject matter. And there is so much media archaeology that we do. So my good friend Ross Littman calls these the bubbles, because when it's projected, it looks like champagne bubbles bubbling up the screen. But a lab would call this a check digit or check code. It's a numerical code that is punched into the end of a reel of film when it's built up onto a big reel for processing, and it matches the cardboard box that the film came to the lab in. So that's how those individual segments of film get reunited with their original packaging to be sent back to their recipients. So a lot of people, that's a question that a lot of people have asked, is like, what do those dots mean? So it's also a good way to match content on a film with notes on a box. It's very easy for boxes of home movies to get mixed up in the projection process and in houses. So if something says, fallout shelter installation on the box, but the film clearly looks like just kids at the playground, keep looking for those little media archaeology clues can help you reunite metadata with object. Looking for, when we inspect at Home Movie Day, we look for things like in-camera edits. This is an in-camera edit, a change from one shot to another. The camera was turned off and then turned back on without a physical change in the film. This is a physical edit, a splice. And it's significant because these two segments of film were contiguous until they had a title put in between them. This is from a family collection from somebody at UCLA whose parents lived and worked in Northern Europe in the early 1930s, and were there from the election of the National Socialist Party leader Adolf Hitler through the early 1935 was when they left Germany. The films that they captured during that time show how pervasive Nazi imagery became in a very, very short period of time. With the they captured the groundbreaking of the Museum for German Art, at which Hitler had a notorious temper tantrum when the golden hammer that he was using to strike the first, chisel out the first chips of concrete for the groundbreaking. The hammer head flew off. He was supposed to do 3 strikes, and the hammerhead flew off, and then he stormed off in a tantrum, which was a story that the German press did not cover, but that the foreign press did. So all of these amazing moments were captured in you know, a family collection that didn't turn up for researchers' eyes until 80 years later. So this was remarkable material that just stuff keeps showing up. So we inspect for splices. We check the splices to make sure that they are still intact and sturdy enough. If they're not, we replace them. We put fresh leader on for video materials, and I'm gonna just go ahead and stop sharing here because this is where I ran out of time to do slides. For video materials and for film alike, cool and dry is the name of the game. We work to make film comfortable and video comfortable. That is the same, fortunately, the same temperature and humidity range that people like to be in. So we work to encourage people to keep your films or your video or your digital files in a place where you can access them easily in case of an emergency. Keep documentation with them, make copies if you can, whether that's digital video copies that you share and post online, or copies on a hard drive that you share with family. I like to have a backup buddy that I see at least once a year, whether it's a family member that you see at the holidays or a colleague that you see at the AMIA conference. Take your essential files on a hard drive, just bring a terabyte drive to exchange with them so that you can be their safe offsite location and they can be yours. And you have an automatic trigger to update that offsite set of files and backups every year on the regular. And for digital files, know that you have to be more active, more thoughtful, and more vigilant when it comes to documenting the formats that you have, the places that you are keeping them. Do not, whatever you do, think about free social media platforms as an archive. They are under no obligation to you or to anyone else to provide access to your files. I think that the MySpace shutdown was a real blow to a lot of people who lost a chapter of their lives that they had kind of counted on staying put for a long time. So the films that we shoot today, whether they are footage of a momentous event like the George Floyd killing or the Ahmaud Arbery killing, which were both documented by people who were either bystanders or participants, active participants. Those are all on the cell phones that can capture high resolution, high quality, highly transmissible audiovisual material that is likely to be of historical significance, whether it is of a world-changing event or a quotidian social ritual. I think that if we are lucky enough to see a significant body of material from the last 2 years, bracketed by material from the years on either side of it, we will see a lot more indoor footage during these 2 years as people have spent time indoors. We'll see footage of people adopting puppies and buying houseplants and learning to bake bread. There will be trends that we will remember decades from now, captured in the personal documentation of today. And I think that the most important thing that I've taken away from Home Movie Day and looking at so many home movies over the years is that none of this is new. We have tons and tons of mistakes to learn from, and it's okay that we haven't quite solved the problem of how to manage all this. It is a process that we are engaged in. It's not a destination that we can hope to reach in our lifetimes. So I want to stop and make sure we have time for questions, and also, of course, to watch home movies. So anyone, anything? No question is stupid. It just is a question that hasn't been asked yet.
I'll start with a question.
Yes, please.
Sure. I have 2 boxes of film, 3-inch reels, a couple of 5-inch reels from the early 60s into the 70s from family, and a friend of mine brought some over. And I'm trying to decide where to get that done. I can do any videotape here, and I'm pretty confident in my abilities there. But the film, I don't know, and I'm very OCD about it. I'm having a hard time deciding where to send that. I have found one place over in Georgia that has what appeared to be a pretty good method, a wet method of running it through a fluid to fill in cracks and so forth. And their digitizations looked quite good. Your opinion on where a regular person can send film?
Sure. This is a great opportunity for me to plug one of the many resources that we developed in response to questions like that came up at Home Movie Day events all the time. That was the first question people had, ironically, because we had started Home Movie Day because people were getting home movies transferred and then like throwing away the originals. And we were like, don't throw away there's literally, Chad Hunter came up with this really great little ditty, like, don't throw your film away, don't throw your film away, don't throw your film away, instead take it to Home Movie Day. So that is we're so serious about that. Whatever you do, keep the originals. Make sure that the originals are well cared for. That like if you get nothing else out of the burning house, get the home movies out, because they're, you know, along with your family photos, etc. I'm dropping a link in the chat right now for the transfer resources on the Center for Home Movies website, which is centerforhomemovies.org/transfer-issues. There is a list geographically organized of transfer houses. You will notice that it is heavily North America and US centric, but you can zoom in on it and find vendors that we have talked to directly who are, we believe, committed to the preservation values of always returning the original materials, providing guidance on preservation of originals, and do not, and you know, they're pledging not to do things like sell your footage, you know, keep copies of your footage and sell it to stock footage houses, or other unscrupulous stuff. I would say your best bet is to find people that you like working with, who will work with you on your budget. I mean, the biggest thing for home preservers of home movies is the same thing as it is for big archives and studios: money and time. So how much money do you have? How much time do you have? One of the other suggestions I recommend to people is, if you have family footage that features particular family members, ask them to chip in and pitch in for it. Make it a family project. And if everybody's chipping in, then everybody gets a copy of the hard drive with the family films on them for a holiday gift that year. Or make it a multi-year project and say, I can afford to do $1,000 worth or $500 worth per year. I'm gonna keep doing this every year as the holiday observance or as a New Year's gift. We're gonna have a dedicated time at our family gathering to watch these together and share information, talk about what we know, share memories, record that and put it online with your films if you want to share them and make them discoverable. So yeah, get a vendor that is going to work with you, that treats you like an intelligent and informed consumer, that answers all of your questions. Again, there shouldn't be a dumb question if they act like, if they use a lot of terminology that you don't understand. That wetgate method is great if you have dirty, scratched film. The wetgate is a bath of liquid that is the same refractive index as the film base. So it visually minimizes, kind of fills in the way a spackle on a wall does, visually minimizes the appearance of base scratches. It cannot replace scratched emulsion. It can't replace removed image, but it can make a dirty, scratched, banged up piece of film look a lot better. It's expensive, but it is worth it if these are heirlooms.
So if the film is in pretty decent shape, it's not necessarily worth the money for that wetgate.
It may not be. It's state of the art, it's top of the line, but it's not the only way to do it. You can get very good looking transfers from film that's just minimally cleaned, and that's one of the things that we do at Home Movie Day too, is look at, when we get the chance, we look at a video copy of film, and when we can, we'll look at them side by side and see the differences. I also recommend, if the vendor is able to do it, getting a full edge-to-edge scan rather than just a sort of safe area or projected area image scan. there is image area in the perforations, which wouldn't normally be seen when the film is projected. But if you really want to capture all of the information, kind of have a forensic capture, you can always edit down to the visual area, the projected area of the frame.
Not to get too in the weeds, but is there any reason to scan at a resolution higher than HD 1080? Is there anything in an 8mm film you can get at 4K or anything like that?
That's a question that we discussed at the 2010 Home Movie Day Digitization and Access Summit at the Library of Congress, which was publicly funded. And I want to say thank you to the National Film Preservation Board for contributing funding to that. We actually looked at examples of, like, what does a 2K scan look like for 8mm film? What's a 4K scan look like? Can we notice a visual difference? You can up-res a lower res file, and if you are working in a production environment and you're going to use that home movie footage for a documentary that's going to be otherwise in 8K, that might be a reason why, just to make the files easier to handle. But otherwise, you are interpolating data. We can estimate that the grain size, the image, the basic element of the image in an 8mm film frame, you're probably not getting additional image there the way you would for a 35mm film. If you're going to a 4K scan, it's made up visual information. So yeah, if that's a money saver for you, then absolutely it's okay to go to an HD scan. You'll get very, very similar results, and the digital images are designed to be, the differences to be undetectable to the human eye. So a computer could tell the difference because it's like, oh, this is a much bigger sandwich for me to try to gulp down. But the human eye, very little difference.
I keep thinking, if I do want to crop in and pan across and do some effects on that, I might
always get as much as always get as much as you can, and then like the highest resolution, best quality you can afford is a good investment, but it's a moving target too. So if you're doing it this year, next year, there might be a 25 to 50% cost differential. So, but if it's material in bad shape, if it smells like vinegar, if it's cupping and curling, then there are specialty labs that I would recommend. I think Color Lab's about the best in the business when it comes to material that's on its last legs. I've seen them work real miracles with stuff that was barely hanging onto the base.
I think I'm lucky. I think most of these reels, and there might be 30, 40, 50 of them in those two boxes, they all look pretty good. I've pulled a few out carefully, and nothing seems to be falling apart. So lucky. People kept it in air-conditioned homes all these years.
And that was a discovery that we made at Home Movie Day. We thought we were going to find a lot of stuff in worse condition, and we realized that people tend to shoot the film, process the film, watch the film once, and then put it away in a domestic storage environment for the next 70 years. And home movies can be just startlingly beautiful. They can look like they were shot yesterday, especially Kodachrome, which is just the most beautiful film ever made. Yeah. So I am excited for you to see your home movies, and I hope you bring them to a Home Movie Day event near you as well.
I like I said, I can do anything video wise, but film, man, that's a whole other world. I want to get it right. So
yeah, great. Yeah. Thanks for taking care of your films. Valeria, did you have a question?
Yeah, I want to, I've heard that one way to take care of your home movie, like film format, is to put the films in the fridge. And I want to know if this is true, because I actually have this 50 feet film, and we are going to see the digitization of this in just a couple of minutes. But I've been keeping this like this in this plastic bag in a dry and dark place. But I was wondering if I should be, keeping this in the fridge instead for the temperature part of.
If you have an air-conditioned home, or if your home isn't subject to significant diurnal or seasonal shifts in temperature, like it doesn't get like cold and damp at night and hot and dry during the day every day, if you're not like, it's the delta that kills you. It's the fluctuations of temperature and humidity over time that are most damaging from what we can tell. And of course, sustained high temperature and low humidity is you know, it's no better for film than it is for my skin. So I would recommend actually not keeping it in, yeah, delta in the temperature, not the virus. Yeah, delta by which I mean change. The little Greek triangle. I would not keep it in a sealed plastic bag because that creates a microclimate. In which if the base of the film is deteriorating, or if there is moisture in there when you seal the bag and it gets cold around it, the moisture will condense, and it will tend to gather onto the film, which is not ideal. That's why in film archives, when we're bringing film in cans out of a cold storage environment, we let it climatize before we bring it into a room temperature viewing environment, because otherwise the warm, moist air outside the vault that has cold, dry air inside of it will condense on the cold object, the way moisture collects on a can of soda that you've taken from the refrigerator, or your glasses when you're coming indoors in the wintertime. So I would, if you can, if you're going to the AMIA conference in the future, try going to the vendor exhibit. And this is my plug for the many things that AMIA has done for me. If you go by the vendor halls, grab a sample can from Tuscan Reel Corporation or Still Design, one of the vendors that has been kind enough to support our organization, and provides these supplies to the community as a business. Keep your odd little reels of film in that. You can get a 35mm can, vented can, and keep a dozen or two small reels of Super 8 film in there, and that will provide a nice vented environment where air can circulate around the film. It will, if there is condensation, the cans are designed to let the condensation run out. It will keep it dust free as well, so it's better than an envelope or a cardboard box, but you can keep the cardboard box in there if you want to, or an acid-free paper photocopy of the cardboard box if you don't want to keep it. All of those things are great and creative ways to store it. You can also use a Tupperware container with some holes in it for ventilation. It doesn't have to be in the refrigerator. And the one reason I would recommend not keeping family films in the fridge, aside from the fact that they take up space that you probably should use for food, is that condensation issue. If you're bringing stuff out of a cold environment into a warm room temperature viewing environment, you have the risk of condensation. That said, if you have unprocessed film in the fridge that you were going to shoot with your camera, in the fridge is a great place to store it because it keeps the film base and the emulsion from the kinds of fluctuations in temperatures that can be really damaging and prevent you from capturing a good image with it. But great question, and a lot of smaller archives just buy ordinary frost-free domestic freezers to keep small quantities of film in, especially if they're deteriorating, because that is the way film, once it's created, is always dying. It's like any organic substance. It's made of gelatin and cotton and cellulose and nitric acid or cellulose acid or polyester with a gelatin layer on top. And like every living thing, from the moment it's created, it's starting to deteriorate. We can't stop that process altogether. We can slow it down. So like Walt Disney's head, we can put it in the freezer and maybe get access to it later when we have the technology to do with it what we need to do.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Presentation, amazing.
Oh, wonderful. I have so many more pictures. I wanted to show you more and also more Zoolander gifts, but I guess we'll save those for another day. I am very findable online. You can just Google Snowden Becker home movies and you'll find me. You can @ me on Twitter. My DMs are always open. I have a website, snowdenbecker.com. My email address is on there. If I can answer any questions or be of service to anybody, I'm happy to do that. The Center for Home Movies also has tons of other resources, not just that geographic organizer of of film labs that will transfer your films, but also that home movie living will, instructions on how to host a home movie day, and much, much more. So centerforhomemovies.org and homemovieday.com are also great sources of information.
Thank you, Snowden. Yeah, I think because of the time now, we should move on to the screening, like home movie screening part of the event. So, but yeah, as Snowden said, if you have any other questions that you didn't ask today, you can reach out to her. So yeah, whenever we are ready, Dimitrios, I think we are starting with film materials, I think.
Sure, so let me get started here with some of Ryan Handley's material, and let me know if you can see the screen. So I'm just going to be reading from the description he sent. With his apologies, he wasn't able to, but these are fascinating films. And he says that these were shot by his grandfather, Papa Gerald Patrick Thomas, 1940 to 2016. And he started shooting these in the 50s, but the material that we have starts in 59, that survives. And so I'm just gonna get it started and talk over it. These don't have sound, but so it's a nice overscan here. All of these are from George Eastman Museum in 2K Kodachrome using a RetroScan Universal Movie Scanner system. So this first one you can see is from Florida, 1962. Orange groves, lovely beaches, swamps, crocodile hood ornaments that you'll see in a minute. All before there was such a thing as Walt Disney World.
And I just want to point out that these dark scratches, these black lines, that's the kind of damage that and wear that a wet gate scan will help with. So when you see black lines on a home movie, that's a base scratch that has dirt in it that's on the non-image bearing layer of the film. If you see bright colored lines or white lines on a home movie, that's going to be an emulsion scratch where the image bearing layer has been scraped away like a finger going through frosting on a cake.
And so he says the older one here is his grandfather's mother, and then his father, and Uncle Bob, his grandfather's brother, great uncle, that is. So yeah, if you know any of the locations, please let us know. Actually, I think, is this Tampa? Anybody recognize this? No, I could be wrong. So, and as he says, he moved on to Super 8 in 1978. So this is from before that. So it is 8mm Kodachrome. He later shot on Ektachrome on Super 8. It was an attempt to transfer these to VHS sometime in the 80s by pointing his camcorder at the projected image, as we all have done. All right. Let's see if that would be Everglades or Central Florida. Looks like orange groves.
Oh, is she stealing fruit from somebody's tree? Theft! That's something else I've seen in home movies. So at Home Movie Day, one of the fun audience activities we have is Home Movie Day Bingo, which was invented by Skip Elsheimer. And I after doing this for almost 20 years now, I am like reflexively looking for Home Movie Day Bingo squares, and capri pants is one of them. So somebody could gotten Home Movie Day Bingo on that one.
All right, next up we have Christmas 1971. And this is newborn Lynn, Nana's fourth child, coming in from the hospital, in fact. And the other notable thing here, you'll notice later in the film, a fireplace in the background, and that is a fake fireplace, fake cupboard propped up each Christmas for many years for Santa to come in and put the gifts. So whoever is here is looking at a 50th birthday pretty soon. The baby.
Christmas morning movies are so defining generationally. Like every audience will at Home Movie Day will always be like, I had that toy. Like the toys of generations. Obviously, guns as toys are a thing of the past. But yeah, like the texture of everyday life, the not just toys, but upholstery and clothes and foodstuffs, haircuts.
Go the light adjustment.
Oh, white go-go boots.
So this is actually Metro Detroit, Michigan. I neglected to say. That they lived. He worked as a vending machine repairman, raising 6 kids. All right, next up we got Trip to the Zoo from the same year, earlier that same year. So Nana at this point is still pregnant with Lynn, as you can see. And we have Jerry, Debbie, and Janine, and a few neighborhood friends at Detroit's Children's Zoo on Belle Isle, which no longer exists, is now abandoned. March 1971. I don't know who thought it was a good idea. Put the seal with the tiger. That's like a cheetah, actually.
So in Southern California, the defunct theme park tourist attraction that we had was Marineland of the Pacific, which I learned had one of the first orcas, killer whales, to give birth in captivity. And when Marineland shut down in 1972, she was transferred. Her name was Corky, and she was transferred to SeaWorld in San Diego, and she's still there. You could see her in the documentary Blackfish, and she gave birth over 40 times in captivity, and none of her babies survived. So this foot, one of the like Black humor jokes I make in home movie days is like, oh, if there's a dog on screen in home movie day, that dog is so dead. But in the case of the killer whale that I saw on 1970s footage, early 1970s footage, not dead, still very much alive and still living in a way that is really thought-provoking for us humans who have long lifespans.
And the horse puppet, the horse sock puppet that you saw there, Ryan is saying that shows up in earlier home movies 10 years before this, so from the early 60s. Now I'll hand it over to Valeria to talk about this one called A Wintry Day in Corvallis 2020, Oregon, I suppose.
Yeah, Oregon. Thank you, Dimitrios. So this is the film that I showed you previously. It's here. I shot that with a Miso. I have the camera here. This was a birthday present from my husband last year, and I wanted to test the camera. So that's me. And I think you will see my husband there too. So it just started snowing. It was winter, and it's not very common actually to have like white winters in Corvallis. It's pretty unusual actually. So I said, okay, this is the perfect time to go out and test the camera. So I did these images, and I'm very glad I did so because it only snowed one day in the whole winter. So I'm very glad that I was able to go out and show the snow and test the camera that day. So and this is black and white reversal film. So this is a 3x Kodak, and it's Super 8. And I transferred this to HD. So that's what we are seeing. And then that's my husband. And then I also did at the very end some like little shots from other trees and things in nature just to complete the film, and because I was very anxious to send this to the laboratory. And the laboratory I use for this is called CineLab. So because I don't think we have laboratories in Oregon, so I have
they're in Boulder. CineLab is fantastic.
Yeah, I had to ship this because we don't have any laboratories here. So, but I just love winter. Where I'm from, Argentina, Ushuaia, it's my town city, like where I was born, and there's a lot of snow. So I love winter. It just reminds me of home every time. So yeah, I really enjoy doing that. So this is like my first home movie that I do for myself. Yay.
It came out great. It's really beautiful. You got your exposures just right. I'm impressed.
True. So moving on to this one that I want to share. And I'll put on a link on the chat box. For those of you, this is a teaser for a documentary on this person that made this movie that I want to show. So this is from 1927, and it's not quite a home movie. It's an amateur movie. It's a student film that I found a while back when I was looking at the papers of this Greek photographer who was completely kind of self-trained, but he made this film after he crossed illegally from Mexico to the US. That was after the immigration restrictions. And so he studied in Chicago in this photography school, sort of, this is a student film from 1927. And he is the gentleman on the right here. So you'll notice this is sort of exercises, right? And you know how we all play in film school where you would do dissolves and we want to kind of multiple exposures and you know, time lapse and all the effects. So you'll see some of that. And his name is Panos Iliopoulos. And he went back to Greece, to his native village, and became a kind of a portrait photographer. So for the rest of his life. So he didn't make many other films. But this was kind of an interesting moment in the early 20th century where you had all these schools, right, springing up across the country, teaching people how to shoot movies. So you can check out the link on the teaser for more details about him. Yeah, there could be some frame rate change and skipping and stopping. I'm not sure the transmission, but so you'll see Buckingham Fountain and Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and some of his classmates here. And this is the Museum of Science and Industry, if I'm not mistaken. Or it could be Field Museum, one of the two in Chicago. (1927). All right. So with that, I'll hand it over now to Ryan.
Sure, yeah. That was awesome. I love seeing black and white like that. Mine are, so my section, everything that I filmed was filmed on this little camcorder, which does mini DV. I got this probably in like 2005 or something like that, and I've continued to use it. I've actually taken really good care of it, so it's still like usable and it's really easy. Still digitize tapes, obviously, like videotape is easier. I think I will just show two of my tapes. One thing that Snowden mentioned earlier that resonated with me was paying attention to kind of everyday stuff like what's on the table, what are you eating, what are they wearing, stuff like that. And at various points in my life, I've realized that it's fun to use this camcorder to capture stuff like that. That way, 20 years from now, I'll look back at it and say, oh, that's funny, I was wearing that, or I was listening to that podcast or whatever. It's very like quotidian was the word you used, that resonated with me. One of the things that I filmed that I'll start with was literally a walk in the park with my dog. Let me see if I can share it. And I don't know if when I share, is it gonna share the sound as well? I can always try. I guess just let me know. Okay, is this working? It's working?
I think it's not showing sound.
Okay. Should I stop it? There's not much sound going on anyway. Like, this is really bad visual right now, but it's because it's in the dark, but it's about to go to a park. You'll start to see more. I can just narrate it similar to what we were doing with the film. That's me. This is from like, I think 2 years ago. I got my dog in the back seat.
What's your dog's name?
His name is Blinky Bill, which it's an Australian cartoon of a koala. So he's named after a cartoon koala.
But he is not part koala.
No, but he should be. He's part Muppet, is what he looks like. He's a mutt, but so you can't hear anything, right?
No.
Okay, I don't know if I should get rid of my. Does that help?
Okay. It's probably a setting from when you were sharing screen. There's a little box to check in Zoom to share the sound. If you stop sharing and start again, and look for the little box that says the little checkbox for share computer audio.
Share screen, okay. Let me try it real quick because it's going to be relevant in the next one. Because it's.
Is there a fart joke? Please say there's a fart joke.
there's no fart joke, but there's people talking. So let me stop sharing for a second.
Yeah, just toggle off, and then when you toggle back in before you choose the window that you're sharing, look for it. It's on my screen. It's in the lower left, but it may be your mileage may vary.
Dang. All right.
That says share computer audio.
Yeah. Share sound.
Share sound. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Share.
Fingers crossed, everybody.
Yeah. You're going to hear a bunch of geese and stuff now. Also footage of me forgetting that I was recording, apparently. That's probably a bingo with home videos too. With videotape especially.
Look at this asshole.
You could describe yourself and...
That's another jump cut. So this video, it leads into the next one I'll show. This is, well, this is my dog again. But this is in my sister's house in Knoxville. And my two nephews are going to be in the next video. My brother is playing with my nephew.
He said nobody cares.
Okay, do you want? I was playing Simon Says with Nate Nemeth.
Okay, one more video of us boating in Knoxville. So this is playing well, and you can hear it
any longer.
Come here, Nick.
Just want to make sure. Is it working well? Sorry, I didn't see. Okay.
Are you going to say cheers?
Cheers.
Take a sip. We'll see. It's kind of too bright out. Yeah. When we get back, I'll show you.
You'll have lots of new things to watch when you get home.
You drink like the whole bottle in your mouth.
Can I see it?
Don't do that.
Because heaven's married.
Please.
We did.
Is that fun?
Oh, I got it.
Wait.
Can you pull it down? I'll get it. I get it.
I got it.
I get it.
I get it. There we go. I think we got back in time because it's 12.
It's gonna
About to
When
be
is
rolling
it in
in.
the storm?
Can you hold this for me first? It's 12:03.
Oh.
It's gonna rain soon.
We needed to be back by about 12:15 was what I was looking at the radar, and it was gonna hit us at. So any minute.
We got some fun in. It doesn't just look that way. La 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 la.
Yes, he does.
Oh, okay. Here's your beer.
Whoa.
My buttons. My buttons. Here, Emmett, can you hold these two?
Fall and it'll snap, yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna vacuum it real fast.
Cheers for beers. Cheers for beers. What is that, cake?
I don't know.
Who's gonna eat the cake?
Penguin for his birthday.
Where's the penguin? Where's the penguin?
He's in there eating his fish.
Is he? Where's there? I don't see him.
And here.
Is he in the trap door?
No, that's where he sleeps.
Oh. Open him, take him out.
No.
Why not? Is he sleeping?
No, he's eating.
Oh, how much time does he need to eat?
And that's it. So hopefully that was entertaining. Oh, I didn't see all these chats and stuff, but yeah. The thing I love about even just this camcorder is it kind of gives it instant nostalgia more so than like taping on a cell phone. And as you can see, I love zooming in and out and jump cuts and stuff like that. So yeah, let me stop sharing. I'll hand it over to the next person.
Yeah, actually, Ryan, you have a question. Brody asked if these are all camera edits. I think he referred to the first video that we see.
Oh, okay, yeah. Everything in this, in the two clips I showed, nothing was edited afterwards. It was all just start stop on the camcorder. And I kind of love the I love the effect of that and kind of jumping around. Fun.
Those were awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, adorable, those little kids. And the doggy.
And the dogs. And the dogs.
Lovely.
Well, hello everyone. My name's Elizabeth, and I'm going to kick off the Born Digital section. It's really interesting being a young person interested in like audiovisual preservation and stuff, because they're like, what is a floppy disk? You know, I just turned 24. They're like, Elizabeth, why do you care about this stuff? I was like, because it's cool, you know. So I'm going to share some videos one of our students sent in. She is actually the SAA student chapter president right now, if I'm not mistaken. In just a moment. Let's see, let me stop share content. Okay, start broadcast. Okay, and we're gonna go here. All right, and this is from Laura Daly. Her family went on vacation to Kauai, which is one of the islands in Hawaii. And at this beach, they were trying to wait for the sea turtles to come in with the tide.
And notice the difference in aspect ratio. Like the digital camera in your phone, video camera in your phone is like a visual shift from horizontal to vertical. So profound.
Absolutely.
Used to complain a lot where it's like, no, turn your camera sideways and then film it, but it seems like that's less and less a concern that people have.
And so this next one, so I don't really have a lot of analog items or like tapes, so I just film a lot of stuff on my phone. And Snowden, you were talking about like pandemic pets. This is Gizmo, the most handsome orange boy. He just turned 1.
So Gizmo's first birthday was about a week and a half ago, and so I've been trying to get the supplies together for this little goblin to do a catnip painting. I've been wanting to do one for a while, but I finally got all this stuff together. One of the ladies I work with actually grows catnip at the library, and so she gave me a whole bag just for Gizmo for this painting. So since I call Gizmo a pumpkin loaf, I'm going to tape down a pumpkin and let him paint over it with the catnip. So I discovered that I am out of gallon Ziploc bags, so we're going to try this with saran wrap. I let Gizmo pick, and these are the colors he chose. So we got orange, red, and like this pale yellow color. It's done, still gotta clean it up, but there. And then I have one more video. So one thing I get asked a lot of times, Elizabeth, what are you in school for your master's for? And I'm like, library science, archival studies, audiovisual preservation. They're like, those are a lot of words that I don't understand. So I was like, just let me show you. So I started filming some stuff that I do at work. I work at the law library at the University of Alabama. Let's decrease some correspondence that's over 100 years old. A few weeks ago, I had told you guys I was interviewing for a position, and I did get it. I currently work as a student archivist and circulation aide at the university I attend at the law library, and I really enjoy it. What I'm doing right here is I'm taking the creases out of this correspondence. I believe it was written in 1911, 1913. It's a collection of letters. I digress. But what I'm doing is basically folding the paper in the opposite direction. And a lot of people, like in the movies, as they say, you have to wear gloves to handle older materials, and that's not necessarily true. Here I'm removing a brass nail that was used to hold it together. This is just to eliminate the rust factor so it doesn't decay the paper further. And this is the finished product, and we're going to add it to our acid-free folders and clip it together with a plastic clip. And those are all of the videos that we have for tonight, and so I'm going to pass it off to Valeria for our closing.
Yeah, I kind of like, I'm feeling that I want to see more. Like this, it felt like this was a lot to show, but now it feels like we could have more to show. I don't know. I can't say how much I've enjoyed this event today. I think we were all very excited and also nervous because this is like the first event we are doing with the chapter. So I think that this just went really well, and we hope that all of you enjoyed it really, really much. Those TikTok videos, I love them. You do amazing stuff with them, Elizabeth. Yeah, yeah.
I feel a little behind because I see all these younger kids, they can do all these crazy transitions and the sound changes and stuff. I'm like, what? I'm in school for this. How are you doing this?
I cannot even use TikTok. Like I don't even know how do you do a video like that? So it's just amazing and really fun.
Y'all, I have to go. I have to go give a reference to somebody for a job. So
okay.
This is very important work. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. I had the most amazing time, and I will never turn down a chance to watch home movies. So even if y'all want to just like zoom me in when you're showing yours to your relatives, like invite me. Thanks again. Have a great one.
Hey, thank you, Snowden. Thank you.
Happy home movie day.
Happy home movie day. So yeah, we reached the end of our event. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything else. I just want to give you all of you to say thank you for for being here, the AMIA student chapter members for being here, for all of you, the attendees. Well, Snowden that is no longer here, but I think that everything was amazing. Thank you for watching. I don't know if we have folks watching on YouTube, but we also say hi to them. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to say something.
And we'll post the recording on YouTube as well.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, we recorded the whole event, so if you want to watch it later or share it with someone who wasn't able to be here today, that would be awesome. Again, thank you very much. And happy Home Movie Day, everybody.
Thanks for setting this up, Valeria.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job, everyone. This was amazing.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Good night.